Now, that is an older video, but some people would call it poetry in motion. And I would agree. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Luke Radowski here of wearechange.org, and we got a lot of absolutely banana news to get into. As of course, it looks like the corporate media is doubling down on their own sword and dagger that they have impaled themselves on. And now it looks like they're just jumping up and down, trying to further penetrate themselves in absolutely disgrace and pathetic actions that, of course, we're going to be talking about that, along with the Great Reset, all in this video. But of course, there's a lot to get into, so we're just going to jump right into it, as there's a lot of fast-moving information hitting the world right now, especially surrounding this latest variant, which could signal the end of this entire mess. As the Daily Mail is reporting that this variant could be less lethal than the seasonal flu, except for the Supreme Court Justice Sotomayor, that literally is arguing that deaths are at an all-time high, that this new variant is deadlier than the one before, and has also claimed that 100,000 children are currently in hospitals with very serious conditions because of it. The real number, according to some estimates, is 3,500, but as some politicians fearmonger and knowingly spread disinformation, harmful made-up lies, other people, of course, are being hit with the fullest brunt of internet censorship, all in the name of fighting online harm, as of course the likes of Sotomayor are able to say whatever they want, while other people, members of Congress, political parties, doctors, scientists, are of course being censored and having their speech and conversations surrounding this very important moment in recorded human history deleted from the record. All as some politicians are becoming more despotic by the day, like the regimes in France, Australia, and also Canada, where their world leaders are literally making arguments about viewing people as non-citizens if they don't comply with their whims. One of the latest victims of this absolute tyranny is the #1 tennis star in the world, Novak Djokovic, a Serbian professional tennis player that was forced to spend his Christmas at a detention facility by the Australian government that literally told him to come to their country on false pretenses, told him he was going to be allowed to enter, allowed to play, they were going to acknowledge his natural immunity, and then they lied, interrogated him, sent him to an undisclosed location, while of course taking away most of his property, detaining him for who knows how long. This, as some politicians here in the United States set their eyes towards enforcing their will onto the general public, as of course the Biden administration wants to implement a mandate that would severely impact not only social life here in the United States, but also, of course, our financial economic situation, which is already teetering on utter disaster. As today we found out that Iowa joined Virginia and a large number of other states fighting the larger federal mandate that soon is going to be decided by the likes of Sonia Sotomayor. It's also important to note that the same government that wants to impose their will onto you also has a hard time of actually even understanding what's going on right now, as we're finding out from Yahoo News that half of the hospitalizations in New York City due to this sickness were, quote, admitted for other reasons. This is what the state data is showing us. This is, again, not me saying this. Yahoo News is saying this. And also the CDC director that went on Fox News just moments ago and said that the CDC will be providing new data on exactly how many of the 836,000 deaths here in the United States were actually due because of this sickness and not with this sickness, while of course also talking about a theory that I was talking about for a while now, that this latest strain will just be with us for a few more weeks. Now, how many people actually died here? Well, that's going to be an important marker to understand, as many people have their own theories about exactly how many people did, how many people had on average 4 comorbidities. What's going to be the government's official response here? What's going to be their official numbers? Well, of course, this is something we're going to be keeping track of very closely, as of course the data and the numbers matter here. A very important lesson, especially if you're trying to get people to trust you. You need to make sure that your numbers add up. And if your numbers aren't adding up, and if you aren't telling the truth, you might be more concerned about mass formation psychosis than, of course, the truth, and you might be losing your viewership and reputation because of that. We're going to get into that in just a little bit, but before we do, we wanted to remind you that you could do your part, help spread the message, the gospel, as Dr. Fauci would call it. Do your part in culture jamming street activism by simply purchasing a shirt like the one that I'm wearing right now, sending a very clear message to everyone out there that beep, 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 beep. We have a free thinker out there. These shirts are not only a great way to meet like-minded individuals, but they're also one of the sure ways to spread a message that, of course, can't ever be censored. It's not just about the branding. It's not just about the messaging. It's showing people that there's enough of us that are awake, that know what's going on. That gives people a lot of hope. If you want to be a part of that, go to thebestpoliticalshirts.com. We literally just released the Mass Formation Psychosis shirt. And of course, you could get yours exclusively while supplies last on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. The link is now in the description below. Click on it to, of course, find out more. And also see the shirts that we can't show you here on this platform. We have a lot of them. They're very thought-provoking. And they're sure to get a rise from your fellow Karen and Kyle. And hey, because you guys do that, I'm still able to be here, grow my operations, and I can't thank you enough for doing that. Now, just jumping into our first story, I think it's very fair to say that Joe Rogan has been absolutely obliterating the corporate media with just 3 hours of a podcast utterly shattering and breaking billions of dollars in marketing and messaging, with the official narrative and agenda being flushed down the toilet by Mr. I'm gonna take as much horse dewormer as I want, Joe Rogan, that is saying enough is enough of the corporatist, statist propaganda lying to the American people. Now, my statements might be a little bit sensationalistic and bombastic, to say the least, but the ratings don't lie here, especially if you compare the viewership, the number of people who follow Joe Rogan, and of course the number of people who watch and follow the corporate media. Even when it comes to comparisons of Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan is absolutely also beating Kim, who's the #1 spot in all of the corporate media in viewership. His latest interviews with Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. Malone, who all faced very serious online censorship, has garnered, with Dr. Peter McCullough alone, an estimated 50 million viewers. The Malone interview is estimated to be over 40 million downloads. These are numbers that, of course, absolutely don't even compare to the corporate media. Now, of course, these are two totally different media platforms, especially when it comes to television and online and platforms like Spotify. But comparatively, it's also important to note here that viewership on corporate boob tube television has been going down by the years. It most likely will continue to go down, as Joe Rogan provides something that, of course, the corporate media absolutely knows almost nothing about. And that, of course, is an honest, real discussion based on truth rather than opinion and corporate PR talking points. Jordan Peterson made this comment very concisely just by simply saying Joe Rogan beats ratings of legacy media because, quote, he doesn't lie. And let's be honest here, when you're watching Joe Rogan's podcast, he's not trying to sell you something. He's not trying to convince you of something. He's not trying to come from perspective that he is the all-knowing God of everything. And when he doesn't know something, he just simply says, hey, I don't know about this. Let's research this. Let's look this up. And one of the major appeals to the Joe Rogan podcast is, of course, the way he's able to articulate and go through the prospects of learning something new without jumping into bias immediately because of emotional trigger issues. And he logically talks people through a somewhat of a fact-finding mission when it comes to the issues that he's discussing. This is almost the complete opposite approach of the corporate media that literally take underhanded, cheap shots at him in desperate moves trying to destroy his credibility, with, of course, a few weeks ago even changing the way his own videos were portrayed of himself, trying to make him look like a green potato Frankenstein goblin on CNN, as they were accusing him of taking horse medicine, when, of course, he was taking medicine that was prescribed to him by a medical doctor. The same kind of medicine that, of course, is also treated many NFL players, according to Aaron Rodgers secretly, and also, according to some medical professionals, has also treated members of Congress. Corporate media doesn't like to talk about this treatment. They attack anyone who does publicly, even though a lot of the very powerful people are personally taking it themselves. The Associated Press decided to disgrace themselves even more and said, essentially, don't believe what you see in front of your eyes. We're the objectors of truth, and according to the Associated Press, there's no evidence that CNN manipulated the color of the video that they played on their segment. And obviously, clearly there was. Joe Rogan just posted this on his Instagram page, playing, of course, the full video, which, of course, there's a big distinction between. Associated Press, nope, nothing happened. As today, the Associated Press decided to launch another Pravda-like attack on Dr. Robert Malone, saying that, quote, mass formation psychosis, a term coined by Dr. Robert Malone on the Joe Rogan podcast, is, quote, an unfound theory spreading online suggesting that millions of people have been hypnotized into believing mainstream ideas to combat this sickness. Psychology experts say the concept is not supported by evidence. Get the facts. Are you kidding me? You had to add that here. Like this wasn't a desperate Orwellian doublespeak move already. You had to add, get the facts. Really? Really, Associated Press? This is the same, quote, news organization that also had a headline previously before that, quote, Donald Trump is a master of hypnotism, how he used the power on America and then himself. And of course, the Associated Press didn't launch an attack piece just by themselves. Today, Reuters did as well. These are the two major, largest kind of news aggregators that many other, quote, news organizations take and replicate and spread their message around their viewership. Reuters also has a very big conflict of interest with Pfizer, as of course the Reuters chairman is a Pfizer investor and board member into the product that of course he's allegedly fairly reporting on. Now, as the corporate journalists repeat the same talking points, push the same agenda, ignore the same facts that are inconvenient towards this larger push for power and control by the very special interests that they work with and collude with. Remember, the journalists that have complied every step of the way here, that wore 1 mask, 2 masks, social distanced, took the procedure, isolated themselves, followed directions every step of the way, tell you that there is no mass formation psychosis here. Yeah, you thought that was crazy? The CDC and the corporate media is trying to go after memes that, of course, expose their nonsense. Remember, memes bad, the same talking points regurgitated by almost every single, quote, person in power in unison with, of course, the late night TV show host also saying them together like they were in a choir, is absolutely not mass formation psychosis. There is no Great Reset. There is no Build Back Better agenda. There is no the 2030 vision as described by many top globalists. There is no evisceration of your personal liberty and economic success and future. There's no agenda here. Nothing to look at. Don't worry. Go back to watching Gladiators, America. Go back to bed, America. Your government has it all figured out. Go back to bed. You are free to do as we tell you. You are free to do as we tell you. Those are, of course, the very famous words of Bill Hicks, an absolute legend. If you haven't heard of him, definitely look him up. Check out his comedy, because it is becoming more relevant than ever. And if the corporate media literally just said what he said, it would be a lot more believable than the absolute garbage that they're spewing right now to the American people. And if you agree, share this video with your friends and family members. It is more important than ever that we get activated, that we get engaged, that we join the conversation, and we start speaking truths louder than ever. Cannot let the lies shun us out. We cannot let the propaganda stop us. The only thing standing in the way of really bad things happening is, of course, people's blind obedience and ignorance to what's really going on. That's my perspective, and if you agree with that, you're here in the right place. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you being a part of this independent media organization. I'm humbled that we just get to spend some time together. I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on wearechange.org.